This will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates
The arguments people have
America
over
with high-speed internet,
making water plants,
including 35%
make things better for
rural
humans.
America that still doesn't have it. It's going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the vice president to lead.
It's crazy that his infrastructure bill got cut.
Because I know it'll get done. Creates jobs building a modern power grid. Our grids are vulnerable to storms, hacks, catastrophic failures with tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms. The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look, the American Jobs Plan will help millions of people get back to their jobs and back to their careers. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican. Democrat or Republican voters. Their great concern, almost as much as their children, is taking care of an elderly loved one who can't be left alone. Medicaid contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families and create jobs for our caregivers with better wages and better benefits, continuing a cycle of growth. For too long, we've failed to use the most important word when it comes to meeting the climate crisis: jobs. 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 For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs. The American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy-efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it. Look, so folks, there's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have the capacity. We're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good-paying jobs, jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room. And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy American. Buy American.
They have that. They have that in other countries. So they have that in Australia.
That does not violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration. And I made it clear to all my cabinet people, their ability to give exemptions has been strenuously limited. It will be American products. Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with, feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you, because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in?
A lot of people that care. There's a lot of people that care about older rich
Estimate the
people. Come
American
on.
Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs
That's
and
not
trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is a 8-year program. These are good paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is. And it recognizes something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the
I
middle
like
class.
that pro-union spin, though.
So that's why I'm calling on Congress to pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize. And by the way, while you're thinking about sending things to my desk, let's raise the minimum wage to $15.
Yep. I like that.
No one working 40 hours a week, no one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. We need to ensure greater equity and opportunity for women. And while we're doing this, let's get the Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well, equal pay. It's been much too long. And if you wonder whether it's too long, look behind me. And finally,
They still got to raise it, though,
American
to
Jobs Plan will be the
compensate
biggest
inflation.
increase in non-defense research and development
Everything
on
needs to go
record.
up, but not everything
Yeah.
goes up.
We'll see more technological change. And some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling behind the competition with the rest of the world. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. Today, Mr. Secretary, that's less than 1%. China and other countries are closing in fast. We have to develop and dominate the products and technologies of the future. Advanced batteries, biotechnology, computer chips, clean energy. The Secretary of Defense can tell you, and those of you who work in national security issues know, the Defense Department has an agency
Well, it's
called
better than
DARPA,
nothing, isn't it? I mean, what do you
the
want to do?
Defense
What can you
Advanced
put-
Research Project Agency.
What do you
People who set up before I
what do
came
you
here, and that's
propose
been
they
a long
do as an
time ago,
alternative?
to develop breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department. It's led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health. And that would, here's what it would do. It would
Well,
have
I'm
a
not
singular
pro-Biden.
purpose to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's,
I mean,
diabetes,
don't get me wrong,
and
I think-
cancer.
I don't think he's talking anything crazy right now.
I'll still never forget when we passed
Exactly.
the cancer proposal the last
Yeah.
year as vice president.
It's pretty bare minimum stuff.
Almost $9 million going to NIH. And they've excused the point of personal privilege. I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, name it after my deceased son. It meant a lot. But so many of us
What the
had to
fuck?
see sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan.
What the fuck
So
ends
let's end
cancer?
cancer as we know it. It's within our power.
He's running on
It's
ends
within
cancer.
our power to do it.
Huh.
Investments in jobs and infrastructure like the ones we're talking about have often had bipartisan support in the past. Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different,
Here's Jedi.
they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not
right.
an option.
So we got this show here. The Great Internet Debates Hot Topic Complicated Roundtable Discussion. Bring it, baby! Every Wednesday night.
Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you, I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies because it takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future, in my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century, it made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up. They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we think,
education?
as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century.
Well, he just said one is education.
I doubt it. 12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education
Well, yeah, we
for every
need that,
person
but
in
it won't
America,
pass.
starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country
No
have
Republican will
conducted
vote for that.
studies of the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in the position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years and increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. The research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far
So what do
more
you
likely to
think the
graduate from high
solution is?
school and go to college or something after high school.
Yeah.
When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic. We can do that.
Well, no, I just mean like I just mean like for the education
And
thing.
we'll increase Pell Grants
This
and
fa-
invest
this
in
family plan
black
thing-
colleges and universities, tribal colleges,
I
minority
think it's a
serving
good idea,
institutions.
but I understand where you're
The
going
reason
to.
is
That teachers union's gonna fuck
They
it
don't
all
have
up.
the endowments. But their students are just as capable of learning about cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady. She's long said, she's long, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Joe, any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill. Second thing we need, American Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable child care. We guarantee when I'm proposing the legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world. No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck or taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded tax credit for every child
Yeah, I agree
in the
with that.
family.
So you just
Up
want
to
to
$3,000 per child
you just want to take it out of the
if they're under 6 years of age. I mean,
you want to
excuse me,
take it out of the
over
private
6 years of
sector,
age.
or you want to
And
how do you
$3,600
apply it? I guess.
for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200 in the pockets to going to help take care of your family.
I agree.
And that will help more than 65 million children.
Yeah, I agree with that
Help
100%.
cut child care poverty in half. And we can afford it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025. The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of
Fuck
the
yeah,
aisle.
it is.
But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up.
Yep.
In addition to my family's plan, I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has
I
demonstrated
just
how
think it's funny
badly,
that,
how
that
badly
me and
it's
you
needed.
talking about that is
Let's lower
way more
deductibles for
interesting than
working
listening to
families
Biden talk
on the
about
Affordable
anything.
Care and the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this.
And he's
The last president had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of anywhere in the world, right here in America. Nearly 3 times for the same drug, nearly 3 times what other countries pay.
well, it's broke.
We have to change
It's
that,
broke.
and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices. And by the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough, Democrats and Republicans. Let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America.
About white privilege?
So, how do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficit. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest
wait, what did they
1%
shut
Americans
down?
just
You said the
begin to pay
Dreamers
their
Act?
fair share. Just a fair share. Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well. We're going to reward work, not just wealth. We take the top tax bracket for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million
You're a millionaire,
a
you
year
should be paying 90%. Don't have
and
me.
pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans
It
who
doesn't.
receive a paycheck.
That's just
We're only going to affect 0.3% of all
Yeah.
Americans by that action. 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. It's estimated to be billions of dollars by think tanks that are left, right, and center. I'm not looking to punish anybody, but I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible.
I gotta figure out where you're
And it
at.
raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose and will create millions of jobs.
Just in
that
general,
will
I'm
grow
trying
the
to
economy
piece it together. I haven't
and
figured it out. yet.
enhance our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them, whose taxes you want to raise? Instead, whose are you going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold.
And yeah, I was wincing when
And
you
generate
said
vast economic
that soft
growth.
day earlier. Just saying.
Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for
Oh,
corporate
Jay
America.
was saying just ease up on the language.
Those at the very top. Instead of using the tax saving to raise wages and invest in research and development, it poured billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs. In fact,
I'm talking about on the air right now.
Is now among the largest in history.
F-bombs and
According to
N-bombs
one
and
study,
other things. We're
CEOs
trying to
make
attract new people.
320 times what the average worker
N-bombs.
makes. Used to be in the below 100. The pandemic has only made things
I'm
worse.
gonna start
20 million
canceling
Americans
them.
lost their job in the pandemic. Working in
I'm gonna
middle
throw it
class
on
America.
Twitter.
At the same time,
But you are on the show.
roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic. And they're now worth more than $4 trillion. My fellow Americans, trickle down. Trickle down economics has never worked. And it's time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out. You know, there's a broad consensus of economists left, right, and center, and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them? So they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay, and that we aren't going to go it alone. We're going to do it by leading with our allies. No one nation can deal with all the crises of our time, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as experiencing what we're experiencing now, pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out. And our own vaccine supply, as it grows to meet our needs, and we're meeting them, will become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America is an arsenal for democracy for the world.
Half our country doesn't
And
want
in
to take the
consequence,
vaccine.
influence the world. Every American
Just make it
will have
mandatory already.
access before that occurs. Every American have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look, the climate crisis is not our fight alone, it's a global fight. The United States accounts, as all of you know, less than 15% of carbon emissions. The rest of the world accounts for 85%. That's why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly, it's not going to ultimately matter. I kept my commitment to convene a climate summit right here in America with all the major economies of the world: China, Russia, India, European Union. And I said I'd do it in my first 100 days. I want to be very blunt about it. My attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus, that we are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity to raise the standard of living of almost everyone around the world. If you watched any of it and you were all busy, I'm sure you didn't have much time. That's what virtually every nation said, even the ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I proposed tonight also advance the foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the
I've been
same
talking to
rules of the
myself
global
is what has been
economy, including
happening.
China. In my discussion with
People think
President
I'm
Xi, I
crazy.
told him, we welcome the competition.
I said that's
We're not
nice,
looking for
except that people are missing half
But
the
I made
conversation up there.
absolutely clear
That's
that
funny.
we will
Okay, cool.
defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe, not to start a conflict, but to prevent one. I told them what I've said to many world leaders, that America will not back away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him, no responsible American president could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea, the most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us, equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and, in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek
There he is.
escalation. But their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and they turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionally to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things, and I told them we would respond, and we have. But we can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea,
Man, just leave North
nuclear
Korea alone.
programs that present
They're not
serious
gonna
threats
get
to
any
American
fucking
security and the
nuclear
security of the
bombs.
world.
What was
We're
that?
working closely with our allies
I said, just leave
to
North Korea
address
alone. They're
the
not going
threats
to get any
posed by
bombs
both
over here, I promise.
through
not
through
that crazy.
diplomacy as well as stern
Are there any Republicans in the
deterrence.
room?
And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan. We have
I guess we're putting down a Republican.
We have, without hyperbole, the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. I'm the first president in 40 years who knows what it means to have a son serving in a war zone.
Were you saying there's Republicans
Today
in
we
the
have
room
service
with
members serving in the
Biden, or
same
just
war zone as their parents.
In that space, that whole, in the
We
whole.
have service
I don't
members in
think there are.
Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11.
Only about 200 people in.
The war in
There's like no one in
Afghanistan,
there.
as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building. We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops
Did he talk
home.
about the border yet?
Look,
he wants to avoid that because he's still
even
keeping
as
people
we
in
do, we'll
cages.
maintain over-the-horizon capacity to suppress future threats to the homeland. Make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism has metastasized. The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees, you know well. We have
Hey,
to
Twitch over there, how you
remain
doing,
vigilant
guys?
for the threats of the United States,
We're
wherever they come from.
doing live here tonight,
Al-Qaeda and
doing
ISIS
a
are in
commentating.
Yemen,
Not
Syria,
sure if you can
Somalia,
join us or not, but it's
other
our first
places
time
in
doing
Africa
this.
and the Middle East and
And
beyond.
we meet weekly. The Great
won't
Internet
ignore
Debates
what our
Hot Topic Hot
intelligence
Potato
agencies
Roundtable discussion,
determined to
Wednesdays
meet the
live
terrorist threat to the
at
homeland
6:30.
today. White supremacy is
So we're going to
terrorism.
be
We're not going to
listening
ignore
in
that
here,
either.
commentating as
My
we
fellow
go.
Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation. It was nearly a year ago before her father's funeral when I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter. She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her so I could look her in the eye. She looked at me, she said, "My daddy changed the world." Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if we have the courage to act as a Congress. We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them.
Yep.
I know they want.
The ones that are good, we love them. They're doing the right thing. We're all going through reform right now. Everything's going through reform. We're the face of change.
I know
Like you were saying, Jedi.
they want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform.
So insane.
George
He's talking
Floyd's
about
name.
systemic
It passed
racism
the
and
House
thinking he's going to
already.
reform the police.
I know
to change
Republicans have their own ideas and are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate. We need to work together to find a consensus. But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of George Floyd's death.
That. If we are getting sued by people internationally for our police,
The country
about that,
supports
that's
this reform, and Congress should act.
That's-
Should act.
No.
We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity. Good jobs, good schools, affordable
He hasn't
housing,
outlined anything. He's afraid
clean air,
to.
clean water.
He's afraid to
clean air,
outline
generate
anything to
wealth
fix
and
the
pass it
police here.
down through generations
Because
you
if he
have access to
starts
first-rate
supporting like
real
your
opportunities
1312, your
on behalf of
ACAB
more
movement,
Americans, black, white,
the
Latino,
Republicans
Asian
are going to eat
Americans,
him
Native
apart.
Americans.
Or they're going to tear him apart.
Look, I also
He's
want to thank
afraid.
the United States Senate
He doesn't actually want to say it.
for voting 94-1 to pass the COVID-19
But he did present a
Crimes
police
Act
reform bill the other day.
Asian American and Pacific Islanders.
We should be talking about taking away the fucking
Act.
guns.
The George
Decisive.
Floyd,
I don't care.
You can see on television
Take 'em away from the
viciousness
cops.
of
Cops don't
hate
need 'em.
crimes we've seen over the past year.
I'd rather get shot by a criminal than a cop.
I urge the House to do the same and send that legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign. I also hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect LGBTQ Americans.
Oh, God.
To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back. Another thing, let's authorize the Violence Against Women Act, which has been law for 27 years.
Oh, my God.
yeah, they should. They should.
I'm glad Joe has my back.
27 years ago, I wrote it.
So glad. I'm so glad that Joe has my
The
back.
act that has to be authorized now will close.
As
the
long as he doesn't
loophole.
sniff my hair.
To keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun. It's to close that loophole that existed. You know, it's estimated
Yeah, 27 years.
27 years.
Don't beat
Really?
Women Act and you can't get it passed.
shot
That's
and killed
fucking
by an intimate partner
so
a
stupid.
month in America. 50 a month. Let's
How is that
pass it
not in our country?
and save some lives.
Our country is so
That's
backwards.
not Christian, man. You gotta be able to beat your wife when you come home from
And I
church,
need
you
you.
know?
I need not tell anyone this, but gun violence has become an epidemic in America. The flag at the White House was still flying at half-mast
Yep.
for the 8 victims.
Everybody's
of the mass
wearing a
shooting in
wife
Georgia.
beater underneath their
And
outfit. Look
10
at
more
the,
lives were taken in the mass shooting in Colorado.
even the
A
women.
week in between those two events, 2 150 other
Shit gets
Americans were
wild
shot
when
dead
they
in the
get
streets of
home.
America. 250 shot dead. I know how hard it is to make progress on this issue. In the 90s, we passed universal background checks, a ban on assault weapons and
I don't
high-capacity
care.
magazines that
It's
hold
100
100
rounds. Just
rounds
get rid of it.
that can be fired off in seconds. We beat the NRA. Mass shootings and gun violence declined. Check out the report over 10 years. But in the early 2000s, the law expired. We've seen daily bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed. More than 2 weeks ago in the Rose Garden, surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence, I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are being taken to impact on this epidemic. One of them is banning so-called ghost guns. These are homemade guns built from a kit that includes directions how to finish the firearm. The parts have no serial number,
This is actually true.
so they
I have
show up at crime
relatives
scenes
who have done this.
and they can't be traced. The buyers of these ghost gun kits
got a
aren't
hammer and a
required
bullet.
to pass any background check.
Yeah, you can buy
Anyone
these Chinese
From
kits.
a criminal or terrorist could buy this
Build an
kit
SKS at
and
home.
in 30 minutes have a weapon that's lethal, but no more.
They're all falling asleep.
And I'll
with
do
them.
everything in my power to protect the American people from this epidemic of gun violence, but it's time for Congress to
Come on,
act as
Congress.
well. Look,
Hey, did the Senate ever pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act yet? Does anybody know?
What was that?
I don't want to become confrontational.
did
We
the
need more
Senate,
Republicans to
pass
join
the George
overwhelming
Floyd
majority of
Policing Act?
Democratic colleagues and
Oh, I'm not
close the
sure.
loopholes required in
I'll run it
background
up
check
though.
purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before and it worked. Talk to most responsible gun owners and hunters. They'll tell you there's no possible justification for having.
It'd be nice to have a
100
gun
rounds.
argument
And a weapon.
with people that are pro-gun and pro-this
You think
debate.
they're wearing Kevlar vests?
So if anybody's out there that wants to talk about this,
They'll tell you.
I go back
laws
and
about
forth
guns.
on.
People today
I go back and
were
forth
able
on
to
guns.
buy a gun.
Anthony set me
That
straight
should
last
be able
time
to
I
buy
tried
it.
talking pro-gun.
These kinds of reasonable reforms have overwhelming support from the American people, including many
Oh.
gun owners. The country
Shuts
supports
down.
reform
You
that
don't need
and
one.
Congress should act. This
It
shouldn't
hasn't
be
passed.
a
Not
red
yet.
or blue issue. And no
Still in the
amendment
works.
to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. From the very beginning, there were certain guns, weapons that could not
yeah,
be
what's up
owned
with
by
that? They
Americans.
need to have reasons why they're killing it, don't
Certain
they?
people could not own those
Not
weapons.
really. They just say it's un-American, and then they fucking
We're not
vote
changing
no.
the Constitution.
They got to do better. They got to get more accountability as to why they're shooting
I
it
think
down.
this is not a Democrat or Republican
Wasn't that
issue.
how
I
it
think it's
works?
an American issue.
I mean, they always
Here's
have
what
some
else we
reason.
can do. Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration.
Okay.
For more
What
than
is
30
his
years,
idea on
politicians
immigration?
have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix
Time for a
it.
big goal.
On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe
Oh,
we
no, we
need
don't
to
need to
secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it. It's over 11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here overstaying visas. Pass it. We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it. We also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our southern border
corruption
of
hold up.
Guatemala, Honduras, and El
More
Salvador.
corruption hold up is what you're
The
saying.
violence, the corruption, the gangs, the political instability, hunger, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters. When I was president,
Cover up.
when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And to help keep
my
people
gosh, this
in
is
their own
such a
countries
mess.
instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program and asked Vice President Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this. I have absolute confidence you'll get the job done.
You gonna talk?
Now look, if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers. The young people have only known America as their home.
How do you guys feel about the Dreamers? They should be entered in, right?
Yeah.
Permanent
dreamers are
protection for
DACA and all
immigrants
that.
who are here on
I don't-
temporary
I don't
protective
have anything to
status who
say
came
about
from
dreamers.
countries beset by man-made and natural-made violence and disaster, as well as a pathway to citizenship for farm workers who put food on our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports
You
immigration.
just let them in, man.
We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it.
Give them an
Let's
ID
act.
card at the border.
And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right
I
to
don't
vote.
care. Let them in.
Policies can be made.
Most
Make the
people.
policies. Let's go. The vice president. Oh, come on. I don't know. Got an hour and a half, maybe now.
More people voted in the last
You're supposed to
presidential
say-
election than any time in American history. In the middle of the worst pandemic ever.
Okay.
It should be celebrated. Instead, it's being attacked.
Yeah, HR 1
Congress
is
should pass
big.
H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right away. The country supports it, and Congress should act now. Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy, remain vivid in all our minds. Lives were put at risk, many of your lives. Lives were lost. Extraordinary courage was summoned. The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver to the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you, they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American
Man, these
democracy.
pot shots at
they're
communist
wrong.
countries are fine.
You know it, I know it. But we have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we've acted to restore people's faith in democracy to deliver. We're vaccinating the nation. We're creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs. We're delivering real results to people. They can see it and feel it in their own lives. Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America. That's democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and
That's
I.
right. We the people.
Not some force.
We meet every Wednesday night. It's
Not some
6:30
powerful force we have
live
no control over.
to
It's
talk
us.
about the hot topics of
It's
the
we the
time
people.
weekly.
In another era,
Join us.
when our democracy was tested, Franklin
That was
Roosevelt
such a
reminded
shameless
us,
segue.
in America, we do our
Thank you.
part. We all do our part.
Wait.
That's all I'm asking. That we do our part, all of us. That if we do that, we will meet the center challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong.
What's your opinion on this?
Autocrats will
Him
not win
talking
the
about
future.
autocrats. He's
We
pretty
will.
clearly
America will.
dunking on
And the future belongs to
Marxist-Leninist
America.
countries.
As I stand here tonight before you in a new and vital hour of life and democracy of our nation, and I can say with absolute confidence, I have never
You know,
been more confident.
I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about,
Not because I'm
whatever
president.
they're saying right now kind of
Because
doesn't
what's
matter.
happening
It
with the
doesn't matter,
American
but it doesn't matter It's
We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and
it's
autocracy,
progress
pandemic and pain.
in some ways.
And we, the people, did
overall,
not flinch.
If the
The
Senate
very moment
doesn't
our adversaries were
do
certain
anything,
we'd pull apart and fail,
Yeah.
we
we're
came
stuck
together,
again
we
in our
united.
country.
With
And
light and hope
the
and
inaction
summoned a new
of
strength,
the leaders
new resolve to
is still
position us to
prevalent.
win the competition of the 21st century.
Well, I just think
On
this,
our way to a
him
union,
getting so hung
more
up on
perfect,
this, like,
more prosperous,
dunking on
more
autocratic
just,
countries and saying our
There's one
democracy is
one nation,
working just
and one
fine.
America.
I feel like that's just missing
Folks,
the point.
As I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There is not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together.
That was it.
God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
Never like.
Thank God.
All right, so explain the information with the autocrat deal.
Oh,
Like,
so he keeps bringing up this autocrat thing, and then he uses democracy as this. So, like, I'm assuming what he's talking about when he's talking about autocrats is that we have these autocratic countries, and pretty much all of them are Marxist-Leninist, or at the very least Marxist. And I just think that's a really weird dump for him to be having, because he's basically saying, no, our democracy's fine. But then he's just ignoring the fact that we did have this giant insurrection on the Capitol, and the fact that we haven't been able to pass anything of substantial value in government for several years now.
Right.
And so the reason people point to these countries and say, well, look, they're doing stuff for their people, it's because they are. Because they've achieved the so-called dictatorship of proletariat, the autocratic country that he's referring to. I'm not saying that those countries have it right, because they don't. I mean, I'm not going to say North Korea is a fucking heaven, because it's not. But,
Right.
like, geez, like, please don't dunk on something that is working in some areas. Like, look at Laos, right? They're still a communist country, and they're doing phenomenal right now.
Well, I'm not promoting communism, but I like the social democracy. We can get rid of the video feed now and say thank you. I'm down to letting everybody know again that we're doing the Great Internet Debates Hot Topic Hot Potato Roundtable discussion every Wednesday night. We have everybody from different parts of the country coming through. We have Harley here from Idaho, and I'm over here in California. There he is. And you said Iowa?
Iowa,
Wait,
yeah.
Iowa. Damn it, I said Idaho. That's me. Yeah, so every Wednesday night we do this event on and you get invited to go to thegreatinternetdebate.com and find us there and join the discussion, because we do need to get connected together and talk about these hot topics. And so how do you feel about the whole speech tonight, Harley? Were you impressed? Were you just impressed?
I wasn't. I just feel like it was more blow, just more hot air. I don't think Joe Biden's it. I don't even think Bernie. I don't even think Joe Biden's it. No, I don't even think that Bernie Sanders was it. So I'm not a big fan here. Not a big fan.
Maybe we need a board of directors to run our country.
I think we need to just get more union presence, and I think everything will work itself out. Just move more towards unions, give unions as much control as possible. Eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, because their focus is the people that are in the unions, right?
Yeah, But eventually you get the unions so big that they can become a government power. That's my entire political philosophy.
So then they have to have some regulations involved to keep them from becoming the power.
No, that's
player
the point.
to be.
That's the point, is letting them become the power.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a part of your syndicalist worldview.
So Amazon might take over the world.
Amazon will take over the world if it doesn't get unionized. Amazon's got it. The corporations are taking over, man.
Right on. So, wow, look at us on our little feed there. This is great. Well, I appreciate you being on this intro call here as we merge the Facebook live rooms into our platforms, and Jedi for help putting it together. And do you have anything to say about our Wednesday show before we close out?
Oh yeah, I come on here every night at 8:00 Central, so come on down. It's a good time.
Right on. And then we have other folks that are on the call normally, but since this whole thing was going on tonight, we decided to take a little break and a little different approach to tonight's show. So thank you very much, Jedi Josh and Harley, for being on the call, and everybody who's tuned in on Twitch and on YouTube and on Facebook Watch. We can roll the intro. Yeah, if you want to be a part of our show, go to thegreatinternetdebate.com. Click the HTHP link, which is the Hot Topic Hot Potato page, and click on the invite to get your invitation to plug in your email, and bam, you'll be invited. Thank you very much, everybody.
What we've got here is failure to communicate. Some people you just can't reach. And I don't like it any more than you.